I have understood and I've heard and I've seen kind of the triggers of what happens for me during this month. And what I know I need is I need to be a little bit more space from people. I need to be in nature. I need to be in prayer. I need to have sun. And when I do that, it allows me to work through these moments because I'm listening to my body. We are in the last episode of this month where we're talking about self-care and love. And of course, this, if you've been with us all month, I've been talking about how this kind of term of self-care is something that I don't necessarily, uh, for most of my life, encompassed or really brought into my rhythms and my routines because I felt like, why do I need to care for myself? That's going to slow me down. That's going to keep me back. I also thought it was this kind of like selfish thing. And I thought it was this privilege thing for a long time of this idea of self care. Now, of loving myself, I think that's just something that we continue to have to work on as we grow and mature and figure out those spots that we really need some loving on. But today we're going to be diving into our last episode of self care and love. And then I'm excited as we move into next month, we're going to be bringing up resiliency. And what does that mean to have resiliency in action and kind of talking about how we kind of push through challenges? But the beauty of how I organized this year is we started in January, renewal and beginnings. We moved into self care and love. And then in March, we're talking about resilience in action. And the idea is you can't have resiliency without actually caring for yourself first. And so I know we have felt like we've repeated a lot of lessons, but it's really to like hammer it into you and say, hey, slow down and care for who you are. And so today we're going to focus specifically on our body because our bodies are incredible teachers. They're something that obviously are always with us and they're constantly speaking to us. The reality of us actually listening to our bodies is one thing, but they're constantly speaking to us. They're sending us signals when we need to rest, when we need nourishment, when we need movement, when we need stillness. And the question is, are we actually paying attention to these signals? Too often we ignore what our bodies are telling us a lot of the times, and we push through the exhaustion. We suppress that discomfort. We dismiss signs of burnout. But what if we actually started treating our bodies as partners rather than obstacles, right? For instance, when we're feeling tired and we're feeling exhausted, instead of having that and feeling that, why don't we actually see it as a partnership and we start listening to it because it is telling us something. It's telling us we need rest. It's telling us we need to care for ourselves more, and it's telling us to slow down. And if we actually did that, then we would be able to pour into ourselves a little bit better. So let's hop into this this episode, this Moxie Uncut. And I want to start with this idea of, again, telling ourselves and letting ourselves understand that our bodies are communicators. And if we pay attention to this, and we pay attention to the signals, it could actually change the trajectory of our life, but it could allow us to find some rest and some stillness that we need before we actually go into perpetual burnout over and over again. So our bodies send us signals all the time. I would like for you to kind of sit and think about how your body feels right now, whether you're on a walk, whether you're listening to me in the car, whether this is, I don't know, your morning cup of joe, and I'm inspiring you today, I hope. What is your body telling you? Are you tired? Do you feel that fatigue? Do you have headaches? Maybe your muscles are tense. Maybe you're having some digestive issues, even a little bit of brain fog. All of these are messages that our body is trying to tell us and communicate to us with. And so instead of viewing these signals as just inconveniences in our life, what if we actually started to see them as invitations to slow down, as invitations to start to care for ourselves? Think about how we treat warning lights on a car dashboard, right? Whether it says low fuel or I mean, I'm notorious for always having the fuel tank light come on, but these lights are telling us something. When that fuel light comes on, we can't get mad at the car. We have to go and we have to fill up the tank of our car. That's the importance there. Yet when we look at our bodies and when our bodies send us warning signals, we often push through this and we often ignore them. So why? Why do we do that? Why do we do that? I want to give you guys a story of when my body communicated with me. I mean, it does all the time, but specifically when I decided to like shift and into a new season and a new rhythm. And that was specifically it was October. I've talked about this on the podcast before and kind of stepping back into my fitness journey and what that looked like for me, specifically in October of 2023. I remember picking up my daughter, and my daughter at that time was 3. Yeah, 3. She's my youngest one. And at that time, I had 3, 5, and 7-year-old. And I remember picking her up, and it was the most excruciating pain I ever felt in my back. And I was like, oh my goodness. What was that? Not only was it so excruciating, but I also was just consistently tired. I felt lethargic. I had the brain fog a lot. And it was at that moment that I started to listen to my body and ask, okay, what does my body need? I knew one, my body needed more water. Living in Mombasa, we are constantly moving. It's constantly hot. There's constant sun. And I was very dehydrated, and I didn't realize how dehydrated. I knew my body needed more fiber. I knew my body needed more nutrients in there. And I knew I needed to build muscle again. And so I wanted to really, at that point, I made a promise to myself, okay, no excuses, Jenny. We're gonna start rhythms, and we're gonna start them now. So I started to slowly get back into getting up in the morning and working out, finding a community that could keep me accountable in that, making sure I was drinking enough water, joining different challenges with friends. So again, I would have accountability. I knew I needed accountability so that I would listen to my body. But I love the scripture where it says in Corinthians 6, in 1 Corinthians 6, it talks about our body, and it talks about how our bodies are temples and we need to take care of it. It's not our own. It's temporary, and we're in these temporarily, and we need to take care of our body because our body is sacred, and it's time to start treating it that way. Do you know how many times I want you to think of how many times you just wear yourself out and wear yourself out and wear yourself out, that when you throw yourself on the bed, you're just exhausted, and exhausted in all the wrong ways. And so we need to start moving forward and really seeing our bodies as these sacred temples and taking care of them. The second thing I want to mention about our body is that we have to move our bodies, but we also have to be still. So we've heard a lot of times like movement is medicine, but also so is stillness. And we cannot forget that. Of course, as just mentioned, I'm a big fan of movement. And at the same time, being still is very, very hard for me. And I have to listen to that. So although movement is medicine, so is stillness. And we need to recognize that. We need to recognize when we need rest. It's also about recognizing when you need movement, right? It's this balance. It's this ebb and flow. Your body thrives on balance. Sometimes it needs to move. Sometimes it needs to stretch. Sometimes it just needs to be challenged, right? Other times it needs stillness. It needs recovery. It needs a good nap. Okay. I am raising my hand right now because I'm notorious for not napping. I don't want to say I hate naps. My productivity brain thinks, wow, naps are a waste of time. Reality is I've started to try to do 20-minute naps, and they have been fantastic, and they have given me energy, and I've been still, and it's actually made me more productive throughout the days. I'm not saying pick up a nap routine. That is not what I'm saying. But I am saying that we need to combat this idea of hustle culture. We need to combat this idea of like constantly being on the move. And at the same time, we need to combat the idea of doing nothing as well. Like we're not on this massive pendulum or these big one way or the highway type of thing, because it's not about hustle culture. It's not about just doing nothing. It's about learning what your body needs in different seasons, different times, and honoring that wisdom of understanding who you are and what you need. I think recently I shared about my high sensitivity. This has kind of been a new thing that I've been opening up about more. It's not a new thing in my life. It's just been a new thing that I've been opening up about because I've been challenged by it. I've been learning more about it, and I've been trying to combat it in different ways. But something for me is that I know in every month in the cycle of a woman, there are certain days of the month that my HSP, my high sensitivity person's like area. I don't know if this is a diagnosis. I'm giving myself a diagnosis, I guess. But this high sensitivity side of me needs a different rhythm per se. I all of a sudden I feel like somewhat of a mad woman, but I just need space. I not only need space, but I need nature. I need sun. I need to be outdoors. So I need space and I need to be moving. What I've done in the past during this is my house is pretty small. We have a lot of people in our house. During these days, it lasts about 2 to 3 days. I just like hermit into my room when I'm not at work. And I try to just like work through all the sensory things that I'm taking in. And it's a lot. But what's also a lot is because I hermit in my room, I'm not moving my body. I feel like I'm kind of stuck. It puts me into this stagnation. I feel like I don't get things done. And I kind of follow into this perpetual cycle of just feeling a little bit worthless, which then gets into mental health as well. So I have understood and I've heard and I've seen kind of the triggers of what happens for me during this month. And what I know I need is I need to be a little bit more space from people. I need to be in nature. I need to be in prayer. I need to have sun. And when I do that, it allows me to work through these moments because I'm listening to my body. Instead of trying to push through and hermit and do the old way, I listened and I understood and I've observed, and I can know that even in my weariness and even in my weakness, that God is going to give me strength in that. He's going to increase power for me. He's going to help me in that, and I can find hope in Him in that. And so when we're going through challenging things or when we feel like we can't slow down, so I want to circle back to this stillness idea because I think a lot of the times we feel like we cannot step away. We talked about this again this whole month. Feel like we cannot step away because if we step away, things will crumble and they won't work. But we have to step away. We have to get the stillness. We have to be able to pour into ourselves. So when we step back into it, we have a better perception. We have new ideas. We have new energy, and we're not working off of exhaustion. So strength comes from the renewal, right? It comes from the renewal of our spirit, from the renewal of our energy. And sometimes we're going to find that through rest. Sometimes we're going to find that through movement. But so we need to learn what our body needs. I find renewal and a lot of movement most of the time. And I also find renewal and just again, rest. And sometimes resting for me is actually going on a very slow walk. So I'm still moving and I'm still finding rest. That's why I don't want you guys to kind of combat this rest and stillness with movement because it's a renewal. It's how are you renewing your spirit? How are you renewing your energy so that you can show up? So it's not always movement is the medicine because stillness could be that for you too. It's what does your body need? And I want you to start asking those questions of what does my body need? All right. So as we're listening to our body too, there's multiple ways that we give back to our body, right? We give back through food, we give back through rest, we give back through rhythms of care, and all of those are forms of self-respect. We need to ask ourselves and look at how we're nourishing our bodies. We need to look and understand how we have like how we lead with our values and how we respect our bodies. So how we nourish our bodies, whether that's through food, rest, or the daily rhythms of care, really reflects our values in our life, and it reflects the self-care that we give to ourselves, and it reflects the respect that we're giving to ourselves. So instead of thinking that self-care is a luxury, I started this episode saying, oh, I thought it was for the privileged. I thought it was like this woo thing, not even woo. I just thought it was like way above me. Instead of seeing self-care as a luxury, we need to shift our mindset to seeing it as a necessity. Okay. Instead of seeing self-care as a luxury, we need to shift our mindset and seeing it as a necessity. We need to listen to our body, and we need to start asking our body, am I fueling myself with what I actually need? Am I sleeping enough to actually restore my energy? That's a good question. Sleep. Am I sleeping enough to actually restore my energy? That one trips me up because, okay, I'll fuel my body well. I will, slow down or whatever, but am I sleeping enough to restore my energy? Some of you can live off 6 hours. Some of you need a solid 9 hours. So what does your body need? Am I sleeping enough to restore my energy? Am I overloading my schedule and running myself empty? We need to understand, okay, how am I going to get better sleep? How am I going to be mindful in my eating? How am I going to set a daily rhythm so that I can stay energized and I can stay present. I had a beautiful year in 2022. I feel like after 2022, it got really hard. 2022 was hard too, and I'm still working through it. I can't wait till we get to 2030. Not that I'm trying to get us there. Let's be still, let's be present. There are stories that I want to tell you guys. I just can't tell you right now because I'm still in it. And I can't wait till I get to the other side of it so I can tell you. That's how excited I am. But I'm still in it. Okay? I'm still deep in some of these stories, but I can't wait to tell you about the resiliency and the tenacity and how we push through it. But beyond that, let me bring you back to this episode. I do want to share about 2022. What I loved about this year for myself is I would say this was the year that I really started to care for me, which is funny. It took me long enough, over 3 decades, to figure out, okay, I need to care for myself. But as I stepped into 2022, I found rhythms of my passions. I found rhythms of my values. I found things that I really cared about, and I just started to indulge in them, or I started to really want to do things that gave back to my soul, that gave back to my energy. So that was the journey of me stepping into pottery and learning how to throw on the wheel, and mold with clay, which that alone, guys, is such a beautiful testament to transformation because I hate messy. I grew up not being able to like touch glue or glitter or make a mess. I love you, Mom. But we talk about this all the time, which then led into my motherhood. Like I hate glitter, I hate sticky. And so by the time I got to my third kid, my third beautiful child, I learned to embrace sticky. I didn't want to go to the beach for a long time or take my kids to the beach because I hated the touch of sand and the grains of sand. And now I love sitting in sand, and I should love it because we live in Mombasa and we're right on the beach. Um, but that's what pottery was to me, because it was this idea of letting my hands be a mess, letting me mold, letting me create, let it fall apart and let it be molded into something beautiful and just be part of the process and not care about perfection, not care about getting messy, not care about what was happening in the process, but just being and becoming. And so that I think that one hobby really shaped my whole year. It shaped my whole year, and how also I started to I added facials in my life, which, reminder, I need to get a facial. It's been like now 6 months, but I would set a facial every month and just say, okay, it's my time. I'm going to get a facial. I'm going to maybe get my nails done. I'm going to really care for myself. And I just started working towards that. Something that was really that I hung on to is, especially biblically, is that we should have a Sabbath, right? There should be this time that after, after we work and after the 6th day, that we are given this time to just be and just to be present. And no one is to go in or out on the 7th day, but should rest. Like God gave us that promise since the beginning of the Old Testament and Exodus. And so God designed rest and nourishment for us. It's built into our rhythm. And so if we're not doing it, then we're not honoring that design. And I feel in that year specifically, it gave me permission to rest. I finally took that to heart. I finally said, okay, I'm going to slow down and I'm going to care for me. Now, the beauty of that year is 2023 by far on the books was the hardest not only financial year, but also hardest decisions I ever had to make for Amani Collective. And I've shared this before, where we had to have a retrenchment, we had to let go of a lot of people, we had to close down a location. There's just been a lot of things that we've had to do. But I do not believe I would have, actually, Monty would be standing here today if I wouldn't have found rest and rhythm in 2022. Because I do not think I could have handled 2023, that year. I don't think I could. I don't think I personally could have handled it as a leader. I don't think I could have handled the decisions. I think I would have burnt out. I would have crashed and burned, and I would have cried. I cried a lot that year, but I would have cried even more. And I would have shut our doors because I would have been so overwhelmed. But because I had this rest and this rhythm and this ebb and flow that I had found, there was this peace that just surpassed all understanding. I mean, I find that peace also it's foundationally in Christ. But I also had given myself permission to slow down, and it built this foundation, a solid foundation that I didn't have before. So that when I walked into that year and I had to start making decisions, I could actually breathe, like I could take a breath because I wasn't already drowning. And so I want you guys to think about that. Like, we are created, we are designed to rest. That's part of who we are. So why are we not honoring that, right? Why are we not listening to our body when it communicates to us? Why aren't we not paying attention to that? Why aren't we not treating our body as sacred? Because a lot of us are treating it as an inconvenience, right? When it's trying to send us signals. So why aren't we treating our body as sacred? We need to understand that our body thrives in balance, right? That sometimes it needs the action, sometimes it needs recovery, right? So sometimes you need movement or sometimes you need stillness. And we need to honor our body with self-respect, because self-respect is not selfishness, not at all, but it's honoring and it's understanding the food and the rest and the rhythms of care that we need to give ourselves. And it is not a cookie cutter answer. So this episode is not to tell you, you need to start a fitness plan and you need to only eat broccoli for 5 days and you need to drink 50 liters of water. I don't know. Like, it's not a fad. It's not a cookie cutter thing where I'm going to tell you, you need to do this and you go out and do it, because that's not what it is. Because your body is your body and you need to understand what it needs, which means you need to start listening to it. You need to start observing it and you start walking with it in partnership, not against one another, because you are one, but in partnership. So where have you been ignoring your body signals? Where do you think you've been ignoring that? Is that in sleep? Is that in food and fuel? Is that just pushing yourself too hard and overburdening your schedule? And what's one way that today that you can listen and respond to what your body is asking for you for this week, right? I'd be curious if you start right now. How does your body feel? Maybe it feels great. Maybe you have brain fog. Maybe you're driving and zoning out right now. Pay attention, stoplight. Whatever it is, I hope that you really understand that self-care and love for yourself is needed. And if you didn't catch any of our episodes before this month, I encourage you to go back and listen, because it was not only a stretch of a month for me to talk about self-care and love, but it reminded me of the journey that I've been on to understand myself a little better. So it was a good reminder of all the work that has put in throughout the years and the continued work that needs to happen now as I stepped into a new year, and I have been nonstop. So this has been a great reminder to find stillness. It's been a great reminder to listen to my body. And I'm just always so proud of this community that we get to share these insights together. I would love for you to share Moxie Uncut with anybody that just comes to your heart. If you thought of someone today when I was talking, I would love for you to pass on this podcast episode to them. I have quite a bit of things coming up and would love for you to be a part of it. And I will share that with you in the outro. So I just wanted to share some quick things that are coming up in the next couple of months. So I'll keep this quick. But in April 4th, 5th, and 6th, we are running the Conscious Collab weekend, and that will be in Washington, D.C. The location is TBD, but it is on my website. You can find it at jennynuccio.com, I think, /Conscious Collab. We'll have that in the notes. It is, I believe we are charging $98 for the sake of just providing you guys food. So last year we did a free event. I was able to get a sponsor. The year before that, people paid like $800 to be at Conscious Collab. Shout out to all of you OGs who were there and paid that. Man, loyalty. This year, we do need to charge a little bit, but I hope that doesn't sway you from not coming. And if you do need a place to stay or you need a host family, just reach out to me. I always have connections everywhere. I can get you a host family that you can stay with if lodging might be an issue. But I normally cap our Conscious Collab weekends at 30 people, and would love to have you there. Difference for this Conscious Collab is it is focused on women entrepreneurs of faith. So really focusing on women who are just walking with the Lord. Really want to be encouraged. We're going to have prayer and worship, and we're going to have a lot of really beautiful just gathering and fellowship. So go check out the show notes for more information, but also the website gives you the breakdown of our schedule there. Lastly, one of my first reading plan devotionals, 5-day reading plan on the Bible app with You version is out. It launched last week. So if you want to be encouraged, it's called Leading with Faith in the Hard Places. It's very short, 5-day. It's very quick. You could do it within probably 10 minutes in your morning. Would love for you to check that out, jump on that plan and be encouraged. And I have a couple more coming out throughout this whole year. I have an expansion of a devotional coming out in May, which is the second book to Let It Be Wild. And it's going to be called Stepping Into Your Wild. It'll be a 35-day devotional that goes side by side to my chapters of Let It Be Wild. So that's a little sneak peek of what's coming up. But as always, I'm just so grateful for you guys who are part of this community. And if you're not on the Weekly Wild, I send a Weekly Wild newsletter out every Friday. I encourage you to sign up there because I have all of like fun announcements, discounts, things that I offer on that newsletter. And I just share with you my day-to-day, what's kind of going on in the week and the lesson that I learned that week. So if you want to be encouraged one step further, go check out the sign up. That should be in the show notes as well. Okay, guys, thanks for sticking around just a little longer with all the announcements, and I hope I get to see you in person this year.